Gentlemen, stop ladder. And now.
So welcome back, everybody. As you can see, since the last episode, I've been working away. I've got some extra work done in some of the lights here, and I've made a bit of progress. It's further advanced since I think I left off in the last video. So in doing interlaced knotwork, which is, I guess this would be considered a highly stylized version of Celtic knotwork. Similar principles to any kind of Celtic knotwork that you've ever seen done before. And that includes high crosses, which are probably the most famous type of knotwork, or rope work, whichever term you want to use. This is one of the most important parts of it, and really the biggest part of it is dropping of the lights. And the lights when I use the term lights, I'm referring to the spaces in between. So all of the areas that I'm carving at right now would be called the lights. And so the first thing you do on any kind of a interlaced knotwork is to drop the lights. As you can see, I'm doing that even before I've shaped the outside. And that is important to do the inside first because it allows for the really delicate areas around the edges to be stabilized by the surrounding area. I'll drop those later on, but I want to do all the establishing all of the main points in the center of the carving. Now, one of the most important parts of working with slate, and I think that it's really important for me to mention, is keeping very sharp chisels.
Very sharp chisels.
It's something that's really necessary for working with slate and getting a nice clean edge. So I'll cycle a selection of chisels. Typically, I like to work with maybe 3 or 4 different chisels, and I cycle through them. And they want to be nice, thin chisels that have a nice keen edge, and I'll take those to the whetstone on a regular basis. And slate, despite it being very soft, actually will wear out the edge of a chisel quite quickly, especially if it's a carbon steel as opposed to a carbide chisel. And I prefer to, for soft materials, use carbon steel. It needs more sharpening, but it's got a more lively edge, whereas carbide tends to be rather dull and dead experience. It doesn't have the same life and spring to it that the carbon steel chisel has. So that's why I much prefer carbon steel. Now, as I'm working away and dropping the lights, as I work all of these lights independently, I'll use a common chisel. So what I'll do is I'll set aside a chisel that has a specific width to the cutting head of it. And I'll use that to gauge the depth. So in this case, I'll find a chisel that is the desired depth, represents the desired depth, and I'll use that for gauging all of my depths all the way around. So I'll just use the chisel and just run the chisel around as I'm working and compare it to the edge, and I'll be able to understand how much more I need to take off and drop the light. It's easier than, say, taking a combination square or something to measure the sinking, which is another technique that you can use. But it's much faster to use as a visual aid, just the width of the chisel. So I just wanted to show you something. I've just been messing around with a magnifying glass to enhance the magnification of this camera, and I think that this really helps to really illustrate my point. But one of the things I really love about Slate is its ability to hold an incredible edge and detail, which is something that you can't really appreciate when it's on the screen. But I think that you can see like all the subtle challenges with this material. Like you can see like the subtle fractures and fissures and the detail as well. Like you can see every kind of little mark or nick in the edge of the chisel shows up in the slate. It really is one of the finest materials for holding an edge and a finish because of its dense, fine nature. And I find that that's one of the unique properties that are so revered about this material in particular. Um, and it's this is probably the best way that I can show it. Sorry about the uh, the awkward camera movement, but you can really see it under a fine magnifying glass. So this is probably about 6 times magnification right now. So just to illustrate a contrast between the two sides, this is the other more further along carved piece that I did 24 years ago. As you can see, this is to the naked eye finished to a fairly high acceptable degree. I think largely consider this to be roughly about equivalent to about a 600 grit finish. You can still see all the subtle scratches in the surface. So in other videos I've pointed out previously, not in this series, but in other videos I've made, I've pointed out the fact that I mount thin slabs for carving on larger stones. So as you can see here, I've got a piece of limestone that I've mounted the slate to, and like this piece here has been mounted. Now it's been plastered down, so you can see I've got it sitting in a bed of plaster, and this has been plastered for 24 years roughly. So that's, it's really stable, and it's amazing what plaster will do. It's for mounting, and it creates a really stable base, and it's really great for thinner materials that it provides you with that stability. And I've done that again with this one, and that way you don't have to worry about your piece sliding around the bench, and it just provides a nice elevated platform. So if you are thinking of doing a project with a thinner piece like a piece of slate, then this is a great way to provide stability and support for material, and then you can leave it mounted that till you're ready to dismount it. And then even for display purposes, if you want, you can permanently display it in a frame or on a larger piece of stone as a secure mount. So it's something that not a lot of people think about when they think about mounting stone. They think about glues or mastics or epoxies. But truth to be told is that the traditional technique of using plaster is long lasting and very stable. So it's something that you should keep in mind. Okay, so I just wanted to take advantage of the opportunity to show when I have, well, I still have lights that haven't been emptied yet. Uh, the the principles or the angle of attack, if you will, for removing and starting out with carving slate. So, for people that are interested in this and have never done this before, I'm going to go back to the very basics of um, how to approach this. Now, I would recommend people to have some prior knowledge or experience working with carving stone. Slate is, even though it might seem like it's really easy, it's not necessarily the most practical material to start with. You may find it a bit of a frustrating end to the project since it starts out really easy. But if you don't have knowledge or previous experience with working with stone, you may not have the sensitivity and the refined handling of the tools to approach the material because it takes a very subtle approach. If you go in too aggressive with slate, you can damage it quite severely, and there's really no recovery. So it takes a bit of experience. However, if you want to go through the painful experience of trial and error and failure and then success, then by all means try it out. It's a satisfying material to work with. If you are going to work with slate, remember that slate has got a lot of silica in it, and it's a very dense, very fine dust that once it gets in your lungs, it's pretty damaging. So you want to avoid it from getting in your lungs. You want to wear proper respirators, have proper ventilation, possibly even have a fan blowing the dust away, or if you can, even work in an exterior environment or a well ventilated space, so that the dust isn't lingering and getting in, and you're not breathing it up. It's very fine and it catches up. You definitely feel the effects, so you don't want to mess with this stuff. But don't let that deter you from the enjoyment of the experience. So that being said, uh, the best way to when you're starting out a project or dropping the lights, the first cut, you want to start out a good distance from your final line. So in this case, I'm going to start out roughly about um, trying to think of in terms of metric, probably anywhere between 5-6 millimeters from the line. Or if you're dealing with imperial, you're going to be looking at roughly about quarter of an inch, just for safety's sake. And you're going to angle it so that the bottom point faces inwards, right? So if you were to think of this as a three-dimensional material, which it is, you want to be directing the force into the center. So the main cutting edge is going to be facing downwards, and you want to taper the cut away from the line, so that as you're coming in, that all the force is directed to the bottom of the what would be considered a one-sided of a V cut, right? So this isn't a full V cut. This is just starting out the line, and you just want to go in just a few layers into the surface, just very gently, and just very lightly tap your way through. It takes just the slightest, is little more than you could do it by pushing it by hand. And you use a wood mallet, So in this case, it's the wood mallet that I made for myself out of an old plum tree. I still have to do a video on that in the future, actually making mallets, which is really brings full autonomy to a stony, being able to make your own tools start to finish. I guess the only thing that we would struggle with would be making your own steel hammers. But luckily they're not expensive to purchase. But wood mallets, they're very personal. There's different weights, different woods, different shapes. So you just want to, basically, it's like etching the line, but you're not really etching the line. You're establishing the one-sided V-cut. So this would be equivalent, if you're a stone cutter, this would be equivalent to a draft. All right, so you establishing an etching or a draft line. And what that does is that if there's going to be any disturbance, you're far enough away from the line that if there's a chip or a spall, there's still a chance of recovery. And that's really what it's all about, is saving your main edges, your arrow scissor, your lines. That's really the main point, is that you want to do everything you can to ensure the best outcome. Now, for the next, okay, sorry about that. I had to adjust the camera. I was jiggling. Yeah, so getting back on topic, for the next stage, you're going to continue on with further deepening it and refining that cut. You want to tidy it up. And so as you do that, you tidy up the process. No longer you're breaking through the surface. Now you're cutting a little bit closer to the line. And you're allowing the dust to fall into the center. And you're just shaving very ever so lightly, refining that cut, straightening it out, getting it closer to the line. And you can stay from the line, but what you should the main focus is maintaining a strong taper, and that taper will protect from the top to the bottom, because don't forget that slate is a layered material, meaning that the more vertical the cut, the more chance there is of disturbing the beds. And this is why you rarely see 90-degree angles in carved slate. It is really pushing, it's a cheeky stunt. It's pushing the tolerances of the material, and it's very time consuming. Whenever you have a tapered cut, you can get good results, and you don't worry about there being a devastating shock running from the bottom of the cut, bottom of the light right through and knocking the pieces off. I'm going to discuss that later, because those were some of the mistakes that I made 24 years ago when I started this project, thinking that I was qualified and experienced enough to work with slate. And only at the time I was only a couple of years in to my apprenticeship, and I had some I had good beginning, but then as I got further in, I realized that I had done a lot of damage and shocked some of the beds. so badly that there was no recovery. And so as I tightened up the cuts, I found pieces starting to flake off on me. And at that point, I dedicated so much time to the project, I wasn't going to give up on it. So I ended up having to just glue back on the pieces and continue on like nothing had happened. But there is, for the keen eye, you may have noticed that in the footage of the other side, and I'll show that in the next video and discuss the fact that when you do damage a piece, when you're learning, it's not the end of the world. It's just like in life. A lot of things in stone can be used as a metaphor for life. When you mess up, when you make a mistake, when things unravel or things don't go the way that you imagine them to, and you pick the pieces up, you dust yourself off, you fix the problem, and you continue on. And you're all the better for it because you now learned some new and invaluable lessons. So one of the things that I'm most interested in seeing whether or not I actually have learned my lessons, whether or not I'll actually make those same mistakes once again. Because slate is one of those materials that it will test even the most experienced. You let your guard down for just a moment. Your one bad day can destroy a piece. If you're not in the right mood, in the right frame of mind, you're best to leave your tools on the bench and find something else to do. These are all important life skills that can be applied to so many things, and these are things that you learn in an apprenticeship about how to deal with life, about how to deal with yourself, how to conquer and overcome all of your own personal problems in life through your work. Because a piece is very much an extension of the individual that has made it. And it can tell another individual everything they need to know about that person that created it. I'll often be on a job looking at work that was done by another stone cutter or carver. And if you spend enough time with the piece or the work, you can tell exactly what was going on in that person's life. You know what they were thinking, the stresses that they were under, by all the little subtle details, or whether or not they were experienced. Because there's different levels of experience within stone. And not everybody gets all the full range. Sometimes you have to get experienced the hard way, which is on a job outside of the safety of an apprenticeship. Within an apprenticeship, there's a protection that the apprentice is afforded by the teacher. And the apprentice is expected to make all of their mistakes and learn from them under that protection. The boss will always cover for them. The boss will teach them how to make sure that they don't make those same mistakes again. Without shame, without judgment. That's what an apprenticeship is all about. So that's the first cut, that's the first line. And then after that, then you can start using the technique what I described I believe in the last video about what I call furrowing, or what I've heard referred to as furrowing. There might be some other regional expressions to describe this technique. What you call it is not so much as important as the technique. because stone cutting, stone carving techniques are universal around the world. It doesn't matter what language you speak or what country you come from. We all use exactly the same techniques and have so since we've been doing the work. It's something that's universal, and I love that idea. The fact that no matter what, we're all doing the same work, and we're all speaking the same language in stone, and we have, just like everybody that came before us, and hopefully everybody that comes after us too. Though as we are replaced by machines, sadly, the fate of our profession is unknown. There's not a lot of people taking up the chisel and the mallet anymore. It's almost become extinct, which is the very reason why I'm sharing this on YouTube. So this is just the first stages, and everything just gets scaled and replicated over and over and over again until you get the lights dropped. So I think I'm going to wrap up the video and at this point, and just wanted to thank everybody for watching and staying interested in what I do and what I have to share. And come back soon, because I'm going to have another follow-up video as I continue on with this and share more secrets of the art of carving slate. And I hope that you enjoyed this content and come back for more. So see you next time.